Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Corporate Governance Committee. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome back to Councillor Wells, who has rejoined the committee, and this is his first meeting back. Chris Hossax from Lexton Consulting is also with us this evening, observing the meeting ahead of our workshop training session. Chris will also be present in the room for the closed session to be able to get an overall view of the operation of the committee. And we will also look at securing a date in our diaries for that workshop session at the end of the meeting this evening. So moving forward with the agenda this evening, firstly, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Hodgson-Jones and our independent member, Philip Webb.
Thank you very much. Item 1, minutes of the previous meeting. Is everyone in agreement that I sign the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 25th of September 2024? Yep. Item 2, members' interest. Do members have any interest to declare of any items that we're discussing this evening? No, thank you. Item 3, appointment of vice chair. So item 3 is the appointment of a vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair for the committee? Councillor Wells and Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. May I nominate Councillor Shaw?
Do we have a seconder for that? Yeah. Councillor Gray, do you want to say?
Well, I'd like to repeat what we suggested at the annual meeting, is that to Councillor Hodgson-Jones, being very experienced in matters of corporate governance.
And do we have a seconder? Okay, so we'll take Councillor Wells' proposal first for Councillor Shaw to become vice chair. Can we have a show of hands for that, please? And then we will look at Councillor Hodgson-Jones. A show of hands, please. Thank you. So Councillor Shaw is the new Vice Chair of Corporate Governance. Do you want to come and take a seat? Item 4, complaints and compliments. I would like to welcome Louise to introduce the complaints and compliments item. Good evening, Louise.
Thank you, Chair. So the annual complaints report provides data relating to stage 1 and stage 2 complaints received by the council between April 23 and March 24. It provides information on broad themes, actions taken, service improvements that have taken place as a result. The report also provides members with information on complaints referred to the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman during 2023-2024. I'll just take you briefly through the reports, just some highlights. So we've seen an increase in the number of stage 1 complaints, 206 this year compared to 175 last year. And section 3.1 of the report provides a summary of complaints received by each service area, as well as an indicator of the higher volume customer transactions for those services, which provides a nice balance between complaints and what the services do. There's also been an increase in stage 2 complaints, so 33 this year compared to 21 last year. 94.2% of stage 1 complaints were resolved within the time against a target of 90%, and 84.9% of stage 2 complaints were resolved within a time against a target of 90%. So just missed out on the stage 2. But you'll find a summary of all of the themes, the actions, service improvements by each service area in Appendix 3 and 4. Moving on to the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman, they received 19 complaints for HDC. There were 12 last year. Of those 19 complaints, there were 3 detailed investigations carried out, but only 1 was upheld. The report provides a summary of the upheld case, not the not upheld cases. We continue to see a reduction in the number of non-HDC complaints. And finally, it's always helpful to see compliments. So particularly when reporting on complaints, it's possible that that data is not reflecting all the compliments we receive. But we'll continue to encourage services to record compliments on our compliments tracker. So that brings me to the end. I'm happy to take questions on the report.
Do we have any questions or comments on the report? Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. And made pretty good reading for most of it. I thought I have a question really on Appendix 6, and I mean I'd be the last person to try and make any party political comments, so I'm not. But if you look at the number of local government neighbouring authority statistics, complaints received, we're sitting at 19 for last year, which is up on both the previous 2 years that we've got the data here for. And clearly we're the largest of the district councils in the county. But is there, it seems to be still a much higher proportion that we're getting than perhaps some of those other councils, like particularly East Cambridgeshire or Fenland, who, albeit smaller, are getting significantly smaller number of complaints. I didn't know if there was something systemic that made people more likely to complain here, or that we were doing something different to those other authorities.
Good question. So I think we should be cautious when using those statistics. They monitor the performance of organisations, but the number of new cases that the Ombudsman receives probably doesn't. It depends on a number of different problems and so service areas and local services. There are lots of other factors to consider. We do have a higher number. Yeah, that's what it's telling us, and it's difficult to know the reason for that. We can speculate on what that might be. It could be that we're good at signposting. It could be that our customers have higher expectations of us. I certainly wouldn't want to see a drastic reduction in the number of complaints going to the LGO. You've mentioned this already, the demographics. We do serve a larger population, so we are going to see more complaints. And it could also be local issues. I couldn't tell you what those local issues were, but it could be there's been some planning issues, garden waste subscription service. There could be other big issues that have happened for HDC that might not have happened for the other areas.
Louise, sorry, just one thing from me. You said about the compliments and that they're maybe not being captured. As a council, what's happening to try and encourage staff to kind of get better at that as well?
Reminding them. I try to encourage people. I try to encourage the managers to use our recording system. I think people don't think to record compliments. They might get a thank you, they might, but they don't think to record it. They might feel uncomfortable recording. There's probably a number of reasons why we're not recording all of it. And there's certainly an element of better publicity for why, and helping people understand why, because this report is one of the reasons why we should, because it provides a nice comparator. Councillor Shaw.
Do we have a system whereby if a customer service representative has dealt with be it a complaint or an issue, do we have a feedback? You call a call centre and they say, can I transfer you to our feedback line or provide some feedback on the call? Do we have anything like that at all? Was that something we could implement, perhaps?
Please feel free.
So good evening, members. John Taylor, I'm the Interim Director for People at the District Council, so I'll come forward to help Louise on that question. There's no formal process for that to happen, but we do a number of other activities in terms of getting customer feedback. So we do some callbacks. Also, all the calls that come into the call centre are recorded. So we get a lot of coaching done by the team leaders within the call centre. They will sit with advisors as part of their continuous sort of staff development, listening to calls, listen to things that come through for there. So we do take that opportunity to learn from calls and experiences that we've had with customers. So we don't have that press one to leave your feedback, something we could definitely look at, but there are lots of ways that we do make sure we're delivering quality service and we respond back to what feedback we're getting from customers.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move on through the agenda? No? Brilliant. So obviously we've got a recommendation there just to note the report. Is everyone happy if we now move on? Yeah. Louise, thank you. That was really, really insightful. Thank you for that. Item 5, approval for the publication of the annual governance statement 2022-23 and the annual financial report 22-23. Suzanne will introduce this item along with Claire from Ernst & Young.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. These accounts are now ready for you to consider in order for them to be published. It's not unusual, given this, where we've been with the local audit, that the Section 151 officer presenting your final accounts isn't necessarily the same individual who did them, who brought the draft. That's just a symptom of where we are, and I think that will probably have been well rehearsed historically. What I would like to do in first introducing them is pay tribute to Sharon and the team. Sharon is watching us on YouTube because unfortunately has been rather unwell. So she will be holding up scorecards and judging my performance this evening, and I hope you'll join with me in wishing her a speedy recovery. So that's the reason why we had a second publication, because we picked up that actually there'd been some minor amends and also some additions to the letter of representation. I'll hold my hands up. I don't quite know where everything is yet, being relatively new, and I did my best endeavours to get you the papers out as quickly as possible. So apologies for needing to reissue those to you, but I wanted you to have everything in advance this evening and to show that actually there were some additions to the letter of representation and 4 minor changes that we agreed with the external auditors we'd make in some of the narrative and bits and pieces in the statements. One was on page 4 in the annual report. The second related to note 3 of the accounts. The third to note 7.1.4 and note 17.3. And this is really just to get some figures to tie back to the previous sets again. There is a little bit of history behind there. So that's all I wanted to say by way of introduction, because actually the important part of this evening is to hear from the external auditors on their view. I'll conclude my opening remarks there, Chair, and perhaps you'd like to invite Claire.
So Claire, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is our report on the accounts, and I think we've definitely talked at previous committees about kind of where local audit is and the reset and recovery of the local audit system. So as we've mentioned in previous committees, the form of opinion that we will be given on the set of financial statements is a disclaimed opinion, because we have moved on to the Council's 23-24 financial statements, which is the most recent set of financial information. I think the most important thing for you as a committee to note is that that basis of disclaimer of opinion is linked purely to the statutory instruments and the regulations and around our capacity to complete an audit in the time due. So that is our standard disclaimer. There is nothing in there that is specific to Huntingdonshire District Council. Included within the report is also the value for money commentary, but committee will have seen that in May there's been no changes to that. That was presented to committee in May. So, very happy to take comments on any aspect of our report, but I'm hoping that the content should be fairly familiar.
Thank you for that, Claire. We will go to questions and comments. The one thing I just want everyone to consider once we've done that is that we are going to be agreeing the recommendations on block, and we will be doing that by a show of hands to vote on that. But before we do that, does anyone have any comments or questions that they would like to make? Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, thank you, Chair. I I think I have a couple really. One, and it's about the disclaimed audit report, really. How do we know how many local authorities are getting disclaimed reports for this period? Either ones that you know of that you're doing yourselves or generally across the board. And the second is sort of comes on from that really, which is that in your report, it talks about there being a phase 2 once the disclaimed audit report has been given, where the phase 2 is the recovery to not cause the recurrence of the backlog and get into the same position again. Clearly, normally at this meeting, we'd probably be looking at the 23-24 accounts ready for publishing. I don't know where we are on the timescale of the 23-24. So really it's getting an idea of how long this phase of recovery is going to take before we get back to a normal cycle of signing off or getting the accounts done at this meeting in the cycle, and whether you're still experiencing resource issues in your end that's going to have an impact on that going forward.
Thank you. So the council is certainly not alone in this. The last statistic that I heard around about last week is that there is an expectation there will be around over 400 disclaimed opinions issued by the backstop date of the 13th of December for 2023 years and earlier. In terms of the phase 2 of the recovery, that's a really interesting question, and I am the EY lead for developing the methodology for our recovery phase, but it's not just an audit thing. You know, there's a whole load of system players in this as well. So the SIPFA, who are looking at the financial reporting framework, because local authority accounts, they are really complex for what they're trying to show. The National Audit Office have issued guidance around the expectations for the recovery process. They're called LARIGs, and that talks through the expectations of auditors. So the expectation is that, you know, for 23-24, we would look to get assurance over some closing balances. Actually, I hope to be here early next year telling you that we've got assurance over most of your closing balances in your 23-24 accounts. And then the disclaimer should unwind from there. But there is a recognition that it is a really difficult task, and what we don't want to do is to get back to where we are. So there are cross-party working groups with the firms, with representation from the Financial Reporting Council as well, to try and work through this. And then you mentioned our resource, and so for 23-24, that's under the new appointment framework from the public sector audit appointments, and we have actually as a firm reduced our number of audits under that framework so that we have the resource capacity to deliver the audits that we have within the required time frame. So I would very much hope that at this point next year, I'm sat here talking to you about your 24-25 financial statements.
Yeah, did you want to?
Thank you. Now I've completely forgotten what my supplementary is going to be, so I may come back to it later.
That's anything from anyone else? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, this is an interesting, it's great to get to this point to deal with 22-23. Of course, 22-23 is an interesting financial year to be talking about, because it started under one administration and ended under another administration. So it's a source of great pleasure and pride that I look at 3.6 million of reserves being added in a year when allegedly there was a massive black hole. So it just goes to show that, well, it's not just here where black holes are sort of somewhat fictitious and imaginary. But having made that rather obvious point, Chair, one of the questions I've got is, when we set out in 2022, we set out with an administration that was going in a certain direction, or planned the budget and approved the budget in a certain direction. And then another administration came along and went in a slightly different direction. And as you went through your financial, the value for money, and I'm looking here about no significant weaknesses have been identified with regards to the planning and the management of resources, and the informed decisions and managing risks, and lastly, obviously using information about costs and performance. What kind of sensitivity have you placed, or what kind of analysis have you placed to make sure that the direction that we were going in, things that we were spending our money on in the end, were the things that we'd actually approved at the beginning of that budget. What work did you do around that?
So I have to confess that this isn't my report. I'm standing in for Mark, so I haven't signed off the value for money work, so I can come back. But I know that we do have a standard work programme that we follow, and as part of that, we would look at the budget, we would look at approvals, and we would look, has any variances from the budget been through the approval process and that kind of thing. So there should have been a trail, I would imagine, in the file, but I can, go away and have a look at that and respond back to the chair.
And so switching away from that to a bigger sort of corporate governance kind of perspective, really, in boards where this is not going to be possible here, but in the other boards that I sit on, we would normally have you in the room, and then we would normally ask, for example, Suzanne, and if Sharon was here, Sharon, to leave the room so that you could tell us whether you had any concerns. Now, that's clearly not possible in this environment. And no, because, Sharon's watching online and it's a public meeting and everything else. But what I wanted to do is to ask you that rather obvious question is do you have any concerns that you'd like to share with us around anything that you've come across?
Claire, just before you answer that, did you want to come in, Suzanne, and then we'll come to your response?
Actually, Councillor Gray, that's a really valid point. And actually, obviously, having just arrived, one of the things I want to make sure that's on the rhythm of your meetings is exactly those. And I've had that conversation with Claire, that the committee should have private sessions with both the external auditor and the head or the internal audit manager, whatever you use them. So I think some of those might have happened historically. This certainly happened elsewhere where I have been. So I want to be clear that through the chair and my committee team, that's what we will be ensuring you have the opportunity to do. So please take it as read that will be on your programme of events.
And we have had one this year where we had a closed session at the end of the meeting to be able to do that. So it's reassuring to know that we'll certainly be reinforcing that. Yeah.
I mean, the point is we're getting to the point where we're going to authorise you to go away and sign some of this stuff off. So this to me feels like the moment where you would normally do that as you come to, we've completed our work, we've done our audit work. Have you found anything?
Yeah. Did you want to come back on those points, Claire?
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously, for 22-23, I'm going by what's in the report. For 23-24, we will report at the next meeting. But if there was anything significant, I would have raised it with the chair or with Suzanne at this point in time, so we could, go through the appropriate governance channels.
Yeah. Okay. One final call for any comments. Oh, sorry, yes, you did want to come back, didn't you?
Thank you, Chair. Remember my additional question I had, which is there a specific date that has been set that the 23-24 accounts should be filed by?
Yes, so the equivalent backstop date for 23-24 accounts is the 28th of February 2025. And that's really positive because that does allow everything to be cleared to get back onto the right reporting cycle for the 24-25 financial statements.
Okay, thank you. Yes, of course.
Just from our perspective, Councillor Jennings, I would like to say that actually I know that Sharon's team is working very hard to work with Claire's team to actually facilitate that. And Claire and I, as you probably saw, had a conversation, and that's still our aim of within the work programme, allowing for the fact that over the next few months, as we know, we've also got the budget preparation. But absolutely, we don't believe there's any delays on either side. It's a matter of continuing that dialogue in order that you'll be in that position as a committee to have them for January, and that we will firmly meet that backstop date.
Yeah, of course, come back.
And if I might just indulge me with one comment as well. I thought it was slightly harsh, the risk of significant weakness about publishing the draft statements in the report, given that I fully expect, or I would, using my own work experience, believe that actually the delay in the audit for the previous numbers in the opening balances would not have an insignificant impact on that. So I think it's a little bit harsh to call that a significant weakness.
Okay, so as I said, we are looking to agree the recommendations en bloc. I will just run through those so that everybody is clear. So we are looking for recommendation to receive and discuss the completion report for those charged with governance for 22-23, which is Appendix 1. Approve the annual governance statement, Appendix 2, and authorise the Executive Leader and Chief Executive Officer to sign the statement on behalf of the Council. Also to approve the letter of representation, Appendix 3, and authorise the Corporate Director for Finance and Resources, a Section 151 officer, to sign it on behalf of the Council. To give delegated powers to myself and the Corporate Director for Finance and Resources as Section 151 officer to authorise and sign the annual financial report for 22-23 on behalf of the Council, and to give delegated powers to the Corporate Director for Finance and Resources in conjunction with myself to ensure that any minor amendments to the Statement of Accounts are completed before final publication. Can I have a show of hands for that, please? Yep, and that's everybody. Thank you. Item 6, the Internal Audit Service Progress Report. Yazir will present the first of his 3 items on the agenda this evening, and once he has completed his presentation of the report, we will again have questions and comments. So Yazir, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. So between the last...
Yazir, sorry, could you just move your microphone down a bit? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So yeah, between the last committee meeting and this one, we have had 2 more audits which have been completed. The first one is the commercial estates rent review, and the second one is the green bins one. Apart from that, we are in the process of finalizing the action plan for the previously completed Code of Procurement audit and finalize the report for the whistleblowing review. So yeah, as it stands, 2 further audits have been completed and action plans are being finalized for the previous 2 audits. On the audit overdue actions, we've got, the report says 17, technically it's actually 16 overdue actions because one of those actions have had a date which has been extended now. So it's very similar to last meeting's report, whereby we still had 16 overdue items, but between last and this meeting, we have actually had 5 actions which have been completed, and we have had some new actions which are in this list, which I can, in the next item, provide them further detail on. Apart from that, pretty much in accordance with the audit charter, the internal audit manager continues to report to the CGC functionally and administratively to the Director of Finance and Corporate Resources.
It's been telling everyone to keep the microphones off. Do we have any comments or questions for Yazir on this agenda item around the progress report? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. And thank you for providing a summary on the first page. I'm sure Councillor Jennings will be pleased to see that. I certainly was. Obviously, wasn't a lot of movement on the report since the last meeting. I was slightly disappointed that obviously you've been busy trying to contact people and get updates. I noticed for quite a few of the items on there and the lack of response. I was slightly disappointed about. I don't know if you've had any responses since.
Yeah, indeed. I think I'd actually just preempt my update on the next item. I've had some good interactions with the teams, and basically these 16 action items, and I can maybe go a bit further detail when I give the next update on the outstanding items specifically. And a lot of these are actually being covered as part of the Code of Procurement action plan, which is being agreed between the SLT. And it's kind of really interesting, and it's quite good to see that a lot of these items came in the Code of Procurement report. So they are pretty much recurring themes. And because of that, SLT have really taken a view to deeply and thoroughly look into this so that once we complete the action plan for the Code of Procurement review, quite a few of that would be complete. Secondly, about 4 items out of these 16 relate to risk management. And as Suzanne had mentioned, RSM is being appointed. We had a bit of a lag because the risk management officer had left us. And again, now with RSM coming in, we're hoping that that should gain traction, and quite a few of those items related to risk management specifically should be resolved.
Chair, if I may come in with respect, I haven't actually informed the committee of what my plans are in order to ensure we've got risk management going forward. So I apologise for the fact that that has been said without me actually introducing and giving you that advice. Would you like me to do that now?
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can I just clarify, which item are we on here?
So we are on agenda item 6. However, we do just need to clarify something that has just been said. So we might kind of jump around a little bit, but we just need to get that clarification. Suzanne.
With apologies, because the intent was to actually, for me to advise that to you under the Corporate Governance Committee progress. But as it's been flagged to you, I will bring that in now. When I arrived, the council had advertised for a risk and controls officer, and I undertook the interviews, and unfortunately we didn't have anybody suitable. So the decision I took was that RSM, who provide our system of FORRISK, also for other district councils, do some work to actually support the function. And they will come in and have a look at what we're doing, how we're using the system, and actually help us to get that back on track. Because managing risk firmly sits with heads of service, and it's for the risk and controls people to facilitate and make sure they're doing that. So given where we are in the calendar year and the ability, therefore, to go out and recruit another individual, rather than leave it, on Monday, I went into agreement with RSM to provide us that overview and work. And the intention is they'll have a look at what we're doing. They'll have some conversations with service managers. They will also aim to have a conversation with this committee as well about your expectations around risk management and what you want to see in some of the reports. So I think it will be a really good opportunity to get some challenge across the organisation, both to this committee and to us as officers, about how we're doing our risk management and how we can improve that and help us to start that improvement journey. And I aim for them to do that between now and the end of March. And those colleagues will come along and, as I say, engage with this committee, possibly even a workshop event, training event on some of the ones we've had online. So that's my intention, because of the fact we hadn't been able to recruit anybody. And I apologise, that's sort of got a bit disrupted on the agenda. So apologies, Chair.
Thank you for that. Any other comments on that item? Councillor Gray.
Okay. Oh, hang on a minute. Wow. Not enough movement on that side of the chamber. Yeah, no, thank you very much for that. When I looked at item 6, so it's, and I appreciate your new in post. This looked to me to be very much a, we're talking here. We've got an audit plan. We're working our way through our audit plan. When we look at the heading of it, of course, it's all about effectively it's an update on what other things you are up to, because obviously your role is wider than simply carrying out an audit plan. So have you been sort of rummaging around and doing all the sort of things that I would expect an internal audit manager to be doing, or is it it's still very early days? I'm finding my feet, and I might be leading the witness here, got enough resource to be able to do all of the things that I need to do. So I'd be curious, because normally I would expect to see more than just this is the audit plan I've been carrying out.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Yeah, so through the chair, basically, I would say the risk management. So apart from carrying out the audit plan, obviously, which is quite key, I think the main things which I was involved in was interacting with the different management action owners and getting a resolution date with them. And as I'd mentioned, quite a few of those are now going to be covered by the Code of Procurement, and some get covered by the risk management. Some of them have given some definitive dates on when they would be complete. And secondly, I think quite a bit of resource, it's definitely worth mentioning, and time was taken to try and recruit for the risk and controls manager role. There was an advert placed. We interviewed about 3 to 4 candidates, and so certainly there was quite some time taken in that. But unfortunately, I think the applications we got weren't of a standard which Suzanne and I deemed would be sufficient to carry out this role, particularly on a standalone basis. And hence, the decision was taken by Suzanne that we might be better off, in the interim at least, going through RSM, who are more, conversant with the risk practices, and then also manage the 4 risk system, which is used by the council.
Of course.
And can I just ask, did any risk events get reported to you in the last 2 months, 3 months?
There's not been any that has been directly reported onto me. When I joined, there was the whistleblowing one, which I'm still working on to finalize. Apart from that whistleblowing complaint, there's not been any particular risk which has been reported to me directly.
Could you just ask your question again, just so that we can be clear on what your question was, so we can get an appropriate response? Because I think that wasn't quite the, I don't think you quite understood the question, because the response was kind of about something else. So do you want to just?
Well, I think I understood the answer, and I think you understood the question. So a risk event has something happened in the organisation that could have caused financial impact or loss of life, or all manner of things. An organisation should be keeping a track of that and recording that and reporting those things. So I'm slightly surprised in an organisation the size and complexity of HDC that the internal audit manager has not had in the past quarter any risk events pass through to them.
Okay. Any other comments? So again, this is a recommendation that we note the progress report. Is everyone happy for us to move on? Yeah. Okay, so to be clear, we're now moving on to agenda item 7, the implementation of internal audit actions. Yazir, again, you will present this item, and we will again go to questions and comments once we have received the presentation.
Sure. So the summary on this one is we have had 5 actions which were implemented and closed within the last 90 days rolling period. 53 audit actions were closed in the last year, the rolling 12-month period. At the moment, we have got 31 open audit actions from the different audits we have done. 15 of those are not yet due, so they are due over the next couple of months. And 16 actions they've passed their due date. And I can actually provide an update on the reason why they were and when we are expecting them to be finalized. So the first one here, which we had on the small works contracts related to contract management, and it has been recognized that some work needs to be done there. And we are hoping to cover this as part of the Code of Procurement audit review, which also touched on contract management, and we'll be covering that around in early next year. So that's what the I would say revised date of closure has been agreed between internal audit and the management. The second item here we've got was a published policy for expenses and allowances. This was an HR team's item, and basically this is in progress and will be updated by March 25 as per my interactions with HR. The The third one we have got here again relates to the corporate enforcement policy, and this is also being currently done. And the most recent update I've got is hopefully by the end of the year, we should be able to finalize this policy. So this was the update on this one. The next two items I've got relate to the code of procurement related stuff. So it says the council's procurement lead should review and where necessary update the council's code of procurement. Now although this comes as part of a previous audit, this was part of the code of procurement review as well, and work is being done on it. Now I certainly want to mention that the new Code of Procurement Act 2023 is coming in, and that's due to arrive in January next year. So hence we want to wait till that. So this was agreed between procurement and SLT and internal audit, that once this new act arrives, we can then make sure that our code of procurement incorporates that act. So hence we have had a tentative date of March, April next year by the time this new act arrives, so that we can update that. I think next one we have got is, the next two actions we have got is they are on track. So basically this one related to the data holdings, indexing and deletion routines within the workflow system, the NITE information work system. So again, this is in progress. It was actually due to be complete by the end of last month, but I think it's just taken a slight delay to that, but hopefully that will be completed fairly soon. The next one we had was on Section 106 priorities, processes, roles. So some significant progress has been made here. We have actually recruited a contractor who is specifically working on Section 106 processes. They're due to start. They've actually started in November, and the tentative closure date for this now is the end of February 2025. So the closure date has been extended based on the work the contractor who has been hired does. I think the next three items again relate to controls that relate to, so basically it was the updated social value policy, and it's been agreed with the action owner that we can complete this in line with when we are updating our code of procurement and other policies, so we could complete this in line with that. And then again, the next one is the action plan on contract management processes. So I think some comprehensive work is being done around contract management and around the controls over that. So again, that would be taken care of as part of that one. We've got a number of items here which are about a series of lunch and learn sessions with regards to risk and control. They relate to risk management. So those are the ones which we are hoping that RSM, once they come in, will be able to complete as part of the work they have done. So hopefully we'll have these couple of items related to risk management covered and completed by then. So hopefully, I mean, as a summary, we should gain a lot of traction between now and early next year. So I think hopefully, I wouldn't say by the January meeting, but I think by the end of February, March, we are hoping to get some sort of closure and conclusion to most of these items.
Thank you. So opening it up to any questions or comments, please. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Yazir. I know it's not your fault and you're only quite new in post, but I'm really disappointed about the first item on here. It's just been ongoing. Every meeting we've been assured that it's going to be completed, and it's just dragging on. So I'd just like to note my disappointment in this, but and I would like to make sure this is actually completed by next year, and there is no more delay. So I'd like to, if possible, make sure we get an update from it on its progress at the next meeting, which I believe is January for us. To see if there are any more issues. And I think it brings back to what Councillor Gray said about resources. Is there enough resources in the audit team and the other teams as well? That's my first thought. And there you go.
We'll just let Suzanne respond.
So Taylor, if I may say, internal audit actually don't deliver the responses to the actions. Clearly, I think what is important is, and obviously my colleague from SLT is here because we all take it very seriously at SLT, and that particular action, SLT will take responsibility for ensuring that the owner of it updates or progresses it, or that you have a full explanation as to why. That's our responsibility as management, and I take that very seriously. So your point is well made, and I do know that the rest of my colleagues on SLT, we do want to have a good look through these and just make sure that they're being dealt with by officers and make that part of working, because it's not audit's job to deliver those actions, it's audit's job to do the assurance to make sure we have done them, and you have my assurance we will take that away and look at it closely.
I think my point as well about its resources in general. That is there enough resources being put on this? Because it's been going on for 2 years. So I think it was there when I first joined the council a couple of years ago. Next point was about the trees, the tree management. I've come across issues in the past about the responsibilities. And I think with planning and other areas, there is an over reliance on the there's a map of what people own, and it's always when you contact any council, it's usually it's not ours. It's just not ours because it's somebody else's, and the definitive map sometimes isn't updated because they go off a electronic version that was started in 1999, I believe. Anything that was has not changed hands since 1999 isn't on that map, and so there is outstanding trees, etc., that aren't on the map, and therefore we don't know we own them. And I did a bit of casework recently where we actually had to prove to the HDC that it was one of our trees. That took quite a lot of work through some historical documents, but it's just a note that sometimes it's hard to find out actually who's responsible for these trees, because there's some that have been there for quite a few years.
Anything from anyone else? Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Yazir, for the report. I found it seemed very comprehensive. It was really good to see the chasing that's being done, and your verbal updates have clearly shown that some of that chasing is giving some good results, particularly which would have been my first question, which was about the corporate enforcement policy, which seems to have also been on there for a very long time. The other one I really want to look at was 1690 on page 206, which is the debt management policy. And I see that you didn't include that in your verbal report, but I wondered whether I might take the opportunity of the Section 151 officer being here to give us an update on where we are.
Yes, so I can provide a very quick update to that one, and then obviously Suzanne can follow on. The policy has been completed, so this was actually in the last week or so, and it's just waiting for approval at the senior finance level. So I think there's some really good progress there. So I have actually seen that the policy has been completed. The action order has done that, and all we're just waiting is senior management just approving it. So I think that should be quite imminent. I'm happy for Suzanne to.
I actually was working on that earlier this evening, not because it was the meeting, but because I had a space to actually do it. I've actually sent some comments back to the team. So because I actually think there's a couple of things that need adding to it in terms, some minor things, particularly also recognising it's important we have a review cycle for it. And I sent my comments back to the team this evening, and I haven't had a chance to talk to them about it. So that, as I say, not entirely coincidentally, it happened to be I had some space this afternoon to do some of those things. So yes, it's in hand, and I will pick it up with the team members concerned, and so that will soon be a completed action.
Councillor Gray.
Thank you. I'd echo and Councillor Jennings's words in terms of there's clearly been a lot of scurrying around going on here, and it will be really good to see some of this stuff closed off as we go through. My question actually may well steer towards Suzanne as Section 151 officer, because you've highlighted in here obviously the social value and procurement items that sit on there, and I think it's absolutely right that has to dovetail in with the new procurement regulations that are coming in. I think they're coming in on the 24th of February next year. Has that been changed again? Where are we up to now? No, right. That's what I heard 2 days ago. Anyway, they were due to be coming in February, but I mean, how prepared, because there's quite a lot of information out there about what they look like. So just curious to know how, particularly as we've got our external auditor here looking at value for money, how prepared are we, do you feel as an organisation, for the new regulations when they finally come in?
Thank you, Councillor Gay. You're absolutely right. Procurement sits firmly in my area, and I'm really happy to give you an update. We heard actually a couple of days ago that it might not be February, but we're not sure when it might be. There was a little bit of wavering on that. So that's why I'm saying I don't know, because actually it's not it's a rumour on the grapevine rather than actually anything concrete. What I can assure you is that management decided that it was appropriate to actually put some fixed term posts into procurement and contract management because of some of the actions here, but also because we recognise there's a need to resource it. Actually, I've secured those resources with Sarah as the procurement lead in over the last week, and we've just been literally completing the contracts, and one of those resources will join us in the middle of December, the other one early in January. And also Sarah is moving on from us round about Christmas, and yesterday I secured an interim resource who will hand over for her in the last 2 weeks of December, so we will have continuity. So actually we'll be increasing the resources from the new year, and I'm really confident they'll hit the ground running. And one of the tasks I particularly talked to them about was actually making sure we are really ready for that, and also starting to bring about some of the contract management, which again is managers' responsibility, but they need to facilitate that. So I feel over the last week to 10 days, we've made real good progress in that area to resource it as it rightly deserves. And also with the current procurement lead, we also had a demonstration of a tool that actually might help us to assess social value. Look at that as a whole, and that's one of the things again that I'll be tasking the new people to do. So your question is really opportune, and I'm delighted that I've been able to achieve that for the council in the short period. So thank you for the opportunity to update you.
Can I just say, Chair, that's a very heartening update to hear. It seems to be hitting on exactly the things that I would hope you were hitting on. Thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation is for us to consider this report and to comment, and I feel that we've done that, so we will move on to item 8, the Corporate Governance Committee Progress Reports. Habs is going to update us on this, and also an additional update from Suzanne around the Corporate Risk Register.
Thank you, Chair. You have the report before you. Action taken column is where the updates have been received since the previous meeting. They are there. I'll happily take any questions on them. There is the item included on the Corporate Risk Register, which I'll hand over to Suzanne probably now, actually, and then if not, we'll take some questions at the end.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, I didn't take a unilateral decision not to bring you the Corporate Risk Register this year. This meeting. It is still this year. What I did, because of obviously what I described to you earlier on, I spoke to the Chair, and with his permission, I didn't bring one to this because we haven't been able to do as much work on it as I would have liked. I devoted my resources to making sure we've got something to do it over the next quarter, so that actually it's more robust. So what I absolutely commit to is that you'll have a full update at your January meeting. Whether that is a revised Corporate Risk Register, I yet to discuss with the resource that's going to support us on that. But I just wanted to make the committee clear that I did take that decision to defer that item in conjunction with your Chair.
So could we have some assurances from you that there's nothing that we should be concerned about that's taken place? Because we've no visibility. We're trusting you and you.
What I can give you my assurance of is clearly, as a matter of, managing the business, we recognise, as you said, things do happen. And what we are conscious of, the one or two things actually we probably do want to put on the risk register around recruitment and retention and those sorts of things. And perhaps some of the things that we've observed and witnessed in terms of some of the public interest reports that have come out in relation to other councils, where we just want to check ourselves against those. So that's the work that I do know has been going since I arrived over the last couple of months. And absolutely, that's part of what I want this support we're going to get to facilitate, to actually do that. Are we kicking the tires? Are we thinking about the things that should be on there, rather than just writing lots of things about lots of things? We actually need to take a fundamental look. And so I feel really strongly that actually taking that step, having that external challenge by someone who are experts in their field, I think will be of huge and enormous value to all of us. So you have my assurance. If I was unduly worried about anything, I would have met with my statutory officer colleagues. I would have spoken to external audit, or if appropriate, internal audit. I have nothing that I am unduly concerned about as a Section 151 officer at this particular point in time. And that's the best assurance that I can give the committee.
Right, moving on to item 9, exclusion of the press and the public.
Could we just finish the item, or Constitutional Review Working Party, which I sit on behalf of this panel? Just wanted to say that I think we're making pretty good progress. I wanted to say that after what I felt was a slightly slow start, the ADSO people are, I think, really adding some very good value. And we had a very productive meeting when we met on the 12th of November and got through quite a lot more than I thought we were going to get through. So I know you're on it as well. So
I am. It's just unfortunate it clashes with work commitments. So I think that has been rectified, and they will be moved to accommodate me, which I'm very grateful for. Not just me. It's not all about me. No, actually it is. Always has been. No, thank you. So sorry, moving on then, exclusion of the press and public. The final item on the agenda, number 10, is to be discussed in private. And so therefore we need to resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting because the business to be transacted contains information relating to the financial or business affairs of any person, including the authority holding that information. Is everybody happy that we can formally exclude the public from the meeting? Yeah. So we will just wait for the nod to say that the